Welcome to InterPartyConflict, the podcast where we answer your questions so you can have the best tabletop gaming experience possible. My name is Gabe.
And I'm Jeff.
And I apparently am suffering from some sort of multiple personality disorder. We're going to answer your questions today, but first, Jeff.
Yeah?
How are you doing?
Not too bad.
Cool. Now, for everybody out there, this is going to be a slightly different episode.
Yeah.
We're not going to have any questions this episode. Instead, we're going to do Dragon's Horde like we usually do, and then at the end, we'll have a funeral pyre segment. However, the main portion of this episode is actually going to be an interview that I did with a game designer by the name of Tim Kleinert.
Mm-hmm.
I have mentioned him in previous episodes. When we get into the interview, maybe you'll recognize why I'm interviewing him. But he's a game designer. He created a game called The Mountain Witch. I'm going to be asking him a little bit about that. Also just about how he got into gaming in general, how he got into game design, tips for people looking to get into game design, and so on.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a little bit different. So I apologize if you came expecting questions, and there's still going to be questions, just not questions between me and Jeff, but questions between me and Tim.
Yeah.
So anyway, hopefully this is still an enjoyable episode. We'll still have lots of other fun stuff for you guys.
Yeah.
But so it's going to be a little bit different, and I hope you enjoy it. So you want to get into the episode, Jeff?
Sure. Let's get going.
Okay. Now I want you to imagine that you're on the run.
Okay.
Okay. You have escaped from prison.
Oh, gosh.
Let's say you're being kept in this prison that's like out in the middle of nowhere. It's in the middle of this giant swamp.
Ugh.
A swamp that is said to be infested by horrible monsters.
Oh, jeez. That's better than the prison.
Exactly. So you managed to get out. The guards were looking one way. I don't know. You had like burrowed through the wall using a spoon or something. I don't know. You managed to escape the building, and you've still got chains on you, but you are running for your life. You hear the dogs, or you hope they're dogs. They might be something worse, chasing after you. You're running through this swamp, and maybe something grabbed your foot as you were running through the swamp. I don't know, but you fell.
Ah.
You fell hard.
Ugh.
You splashed down into the muck. And when you started thrashing around to try to get yourself back up, you realized you can't even tell which way is up.
Ugh.
So you pull yourself through the sludge. You're starting to run out of air. Finally, you pull yourself out into some sort of breathable atmosphere. You wipe the muck off your face.
Ugh.
You wipe at your eyes. You open them up, but instead of being out in the swamp, you see gold and silver and rubies shining in the light, reflecting off everywhere in the room. And you realize that
One-Eyed Willie's treasure?
it is not One-Eyed Willie's treasure.
Oh.
Or maybe it is. You were in this swamp. Somehow you found a passage through the swamp, like through the muck, through this, nasty water. And you must have gone down instead of up.
Oh.
Luckily for you, you found your way to a black dragon's horde.
Oh, gosh.
Because I'm pretty sure black dragons live in swamps, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they're the swamp ones. It's, green live in forests, I believe.
I think so, yeah.
And
Blue dragons live in the desert.
yes.
Which I've always thought was really cool.
Yeah.
White dragons live in cold areas.
Yeah, I think like mountains and stuff.
Red dragons live like in
Volcanoes.
I don't know. Who knows?
Or just mountains in general.
Yeah.
Speaking of blue dragons in deserts, I always thought it was cool. Like I think one of the descriptions in one of the Monster Manual books, they talk about like areas around a blue dragon's horde or something like that. You can find glass.
Oh yeah.
Because when lightning hits glass or hits sand, it can sometimes melt it into glass. So there's just like little pockets of glass you find places. So it's like I always thought that was really cool. I was like, that's neat, yeah, because they use like silica, sand, and stuff to make glass. Or silicate or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like you get like these little globs of glass in the sand. I'm like, oh, but it's like signs of a nearby blue dragon or something. So
yeah,
I just thought that was kind of neat.
Yeah, that's cool. But we're not talking about blue dragons or even black dragons or even
dragons. We're just talking about the treasure.
We are here to talk about a magic item.
Yes.
This magic item it was not a submission from a listener, but it was an RPG Superstar item. I love browsing all the RPG Superstar items.
Yeah, there's a lot of good content.
Yes, and this one was created by Paizo user BJ Hensley. It was one of the finalists, I think, for Season 9. It was in the top 16. Anyway, this item is called the Brooch of the Monarch.
Dun, 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 dun.
Is that a thing?
That's Venture Brothers.
Okay.
The mighty monarch.
I guess. Okay. I was going to say that when you hear the word monarch, you probably think of like a king or something, but you probably think of the Venture Brothers.
Well, yeah, he did actually wear a crown.
Okay. Well, and this is probably themed a bit closer to the character from the Venture Brothers than it is to a king. The Brooch of the Monarch is a dainty brooch of spun gold that appears as a butterfly in flight. So the word monarch, of course, comes from the monarch butterfly. Yes. And each time the wearer suffers a critical hit, the brooch explodes into a swarm of butterflies, causing enemies within 10 feet to become nauseated with a fortitude save to negate. As they dart about, the butterflies swiftly form a golden cocoon around the wearer's torso, adding a +2 deflection bonus to AC. After 2 rounds, the butterflies disperse, ending the natural armor and nauseating effects.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So, like I said, if you get a critical hit, everybody around you has to make a save or be nauseated, and then you get a bonus to AC for the next couple rounds. I think that's a really neat effect. That's not all that this can do.
Ooh.
Additionally, once per day, upon uttering the command word, this delicate insect flutters away from its perch, attaching wings to the back of an ally within 30 feet. The butterfly enlarges to an appropriate size to grant the target a fly speed of 60 feet. Perfect maneuverability for 5 minutes.
Huh. Wow.
Yeah. So I think this is a neat item. I really like whenever there's some sort of a strong theme, which of course this one does. All the RPG Superstar items tend to have a pretty strong theme.
Sure.
But yeah, it's got cool effects, one of which requires you to get hit by a critical hit. So it's not going to happen often, but when it does, it could be really, really cool.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it makes you less likely to get hit for the next couple rounds, and it screws over all of the enemies around you when you get critically hit in the first place. And then, once per day, you can give an ally, or I imagine probably, well, maybe yourself. I don't know. It says an ally, maybe not yourself. But you can give an ally a fly speed.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool, too.
I would imagine you'd be able to give it to yourself, too, but...
Maybe. I don't know.
And I'm wondering, like, because it nauseates, and I'm wondering if that's... I would assume that's because I know monarch butterflies are poisonous.
It might be that. This is a Pathfinder. This is based on Pathfinder rules. In Pathfinder and 3.5, nauseated doesn't necessarily mean like that they're like throwing up.
Right.
It might just mean that they are. It's like making them dizzy, and so they take like a penalty on stuff or something.
They're definitely inconvenienced, and so statistically it's nauseated. Because but I mean, like monarch butterflies, they're not poisonous. Like they're not going to bite you and poison you, but they're toxic.
They are not venomous.
Right. Yes.
They are poisonous.
Yes. Yeah. So if certain things can't eat them because they're poisonous.
Correct. And is a small little butterfly tangent, but are you familiar with the Viceroy butterfly?
Gabe, all butterfly tangents are small.
There you go.
The Viceroy. Yeah, that's
the
really
Viceroy
cool.
butterfly is another butterfly that is not poisonous.
Yeah.
However, it has evolved to look very similar to the monarch butterfly, so that when a predator sees it, they won't eat it because they think that it's going to be this thing that is poisonous.
Right. Yeah. And it's like a Viceroy is somebody that
is like taking the place of a king, I think.
Yeah, I want to say that's right. Something like that. That was really cool. That was actually, they make reference to that in Venture Brothers, where it's like the monarch goes to prison or something like that, and like one of his henchmen, two of the two main henchmen, 21 and 24, hilarious characters. They're in like a support group.
Okay.
For like former henchmen or something like that. but then like one of them decides that he's like, you know what? No, I'm not gonna live like this. I'm gonna be a super villain. Yeah, I'll take over the monarch's place. Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, I could be called the Viceroy or something like that. I was like, oh, that's funny.
Yeah. Yeah. So one thing that this makes me think of, have you ever played the game Bayonetta?
I've watched you play it.
It's a very good game. It's a third-person action adventure. It's like a hack and slash game like Devil May Cry.
Yeah.
It's actually made by the guy that created the first Devil May Cry. Mm-hmm. It is a game, you go around, you kill angels. Like instead of killing demons like you do in Devil May Cry, you're killing angels. And in this game, the main character it's not really addressed, but her character design has a very strong butterfly theme.
Huh. Okay.
So number one, you get an ability that you normally have an ability whenever you dodge an attack, like right at the last second, you take no damage and you actually freeze time when you do it.
Okay.
You get an additional ability that if you dodge an attack the exact second it hits, not only do you not take damage as if you had dodged it right before it hits, but your character like disperses into a cloud of butterflies and then turns back. So like it's kind of similar to this. It's like you got hit, but then you like kind of exploded in butterflies and then reformed. So that's what that made me think of. Also in this game, whenever you double jump, your character very briefly for a moment has butterfly wings, which just appear for the double jump and then disappear.
Okay, I never really knew that, but it kind of makes sense because like her design was always kind of weird to me. And like her hair is ridiculous, but I think her hair makes more sense when I think of a butterfly or something.
Okay,
I was like her hair doesn't her hair like come up in like a curl or something?
In the first game, she has this weird, almost like it's like her hair is pulled straight up in like a little cone on top of her head, and then it flows down from that.
Yeah, almost makes me think of like the I think it's called the proboscis of a butterfly.
Kind of, yeah. And good job on that pronunciation, because my entire life I thought it was pronounced proboscis.
Oh,
it is not. It is proboscis.
Proboscis.
I learned that from the Adventure Zone because one of them mentioned it because they fought some giant tardigrades in one episode.
Oh, sure.
And then I guess people were like, no, it's proboscis.
Proboscis.
It's always been proboscis.
Yeah. And I learned proboscis at an early age because other than watching cartoons, I watched nature documentaries as a kid. So like I just watched Animal Planet and Discovery Channel and stuff all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, proboscis.
Another thing that just briefly this makes me think of is in Dark Souls 2. Mm-hmm. After you beat the game and you do New Game Plus, you can get in the starting village. You can get a set of armor called the Moonlight Butterfly set, and the more New Game Pluses you play after that, you eventually get the whole set. And this set gives you butterfly wings that are on your back.
Oh yeah,
that number one let you jump really, really, really far to the point where like you can kind of break certain parts of the game. You have to be in New Game Plus in order to do it. But you can kind of like get to places you're not supposed to be because you can jump so far. And also, this has an ability that whenever enemies or allies are nearby you, they get poisoned. And it's funny because you can very easily accidentally kill friendly NPCs if you are wearing this equipment while you're talking to them.
Does it aggro NPCs?
It can.
Okay.
I think once they start taking damage, I think. I could be wrong about that. Please don't yell at me if I am.
Which one is this in?
Dark Souls 2.
2? Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's a very, very goofy looking set, but it gives you these big old butterfly wings on your back, and then like I think like your face looks like a butterfly's face or something. It's weird.
I like the turtle armor in Dark Souls 2.
That's pretty good.
That turtle armor got me to play that game all the way through.
That's true. Anybody who likes turtles, play Dark Souls 2.
Yeah, it's a set of armor makes you look like a giant metal turtle. It's amazing. And then I had the 2 anvil hammers.
Oh yeah, it's an anvil on the end of a stick.
Right.
Was your weapon?
Yeah. It's a great hammer, but it's just a giant anvil.
Yeah, we'll have to find you a turtle themed item for an upcoming Dragon Sword.
Yeah. I'll look around on the what is this called again?
Paizo RPG Superstar.
Yeah, I'll have to look on the Paizo site.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that'll do it for the Dragon Sword. If anybody wanted to submit magic items for us or questions for us to discuss, Jeff, how would they do so?
They can send us an email at interpartyconflict@gmail.com.
Yes. And let me just take a brief moment to tell you guys to check out Crit Academy. It's a great podcast that we have a fellowship with.
Yes.
They're very similar to our format, but they are more focused on giving you content that you can use as a player, as a DM, all sorts of stuff. You can listen to an episode of their show and get something that you can use in your game easily. You know? It's really, really good. So check them out. And then another thing I want to talk about is Audible. We have a partnership with Audible. If you go to audibletrial.com, you can get a free audiobook and a free month of their service. And if you want to, you can cancel after getting that free audiobook. So it's yours forever. You can still use it. But if you stick with it, each month you'll get an additional free audiobook, and any additional purchases you make have a discount. They have over 180,000 titles to choose from. So I'm sure you can find something that you like. Jeff, do you have any suggestions for anybody out there?
Yeah, actually, there's one. I haven't gotten it yet, but I'm thinking about picking it up. I actually have another credit because I was able to return one of my books. I talked about this last time. But yeah, it's actually pretty easy. If like I want to say it's like 6 to 12 months or something like that. Like within that time, if you're like, you know what, I don't like this book, or it's not for me, you can just return it and they give you a credit. It might be different if you paid for it. I'm not sure exactly what the specifics on it are. I'll have to check it. But in my case, it was one I got with a credit. It was actually the one I got through my original free trial.
Yeah.
And then I just got a credit back. But I'm thinking about using it on this one, which is Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Okay.
It's Astrophysics for People in a Hurry. It's a shorter one, so I was kind of on the fence about it because I have these long routes at work and stuff. I wanted something that was going to last me, but it seems interesting enough. Some of the clips I've heard from it, and it's narrated by Neil deGrasse Tyson himself, who's got a pretty entertaining voice, and like he's smart and he's witty, and there's some cleverness to it, it seems. So. And it seems to be like cool, like very interesting, detailed facts about astrophysics, but talked about in a way that's more casual.
Sure.
So it's nothing that's it's not going to get crazy textbook. Like he usually does a pretty good job of explaining these sort of things in a way that people can understand.
Sure.
Like I don't know if you ever saw like Cosmos.
I saw most of it. Yeah.
So it's pretty good. It's like it's entertaining and it's informative and stuff like that. So it's one I feel like I'll probably end up picking up just because
cool.
like I like science and I like astronomy, and astrophysics is really cool, and like it'll be like a nice little list of neat little facts you can bring up at a party, sort of a thing. It's like, oh,
sure.
Did you know that sunlight is actually orange juice? I don't know.
What?
No. Sorry.
OJ, purple stuff. Oh, Sunny Delight. Okay, I was gonna mention one that I haven't. There's a book that I've been meaning to get, but I haven't actually gotten it yet. I'll actually hold off on that one. I'll instead mention a book that I have listened to. Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of Bruce Campbell.
Oh yeah,
the actor.
Oh yeah.
I hope a lot of you out there are fans of him too. Lisa, my wife, is not a fan of Bruce Campbell. Another story for another time. But he has an autobiography that he wrote called "If Chins Could Kill: Confessions of a B-Movie Actor." I listened to the audiobook of it, and the audiobook is great because it's read by him.
Yeah.
Like he wrote it and he's narrating it. And not only that, but because he's narrating a book that he wrote, and he wrote the book, 10 years ago or something, he gives little updates to some of the stuff that happened that he talks about in the book. So he might talk about, I was in the movie with this person. He'll be like, oh, and by the way, for anybody listening to the audiobook, in the time since I wrote this book, this actor has gone on to do this, this, and this, and so on.
So he's not only the author, the narrator, he also does the commentary in real time.
Yeah, pretty much.
That sounds about right.
And then I think there's a portion at the end, if I'm remembering correctly, where he talks about the release of the book and what it was like releasing the book and promoting the book and so on, which obviously, for obvious reasons, couldn't have been included in the book itself.
Sure.
So it's a good book, and there's stuff that you wouldn't have gotten if you just read the book.
Yeah. I mean, that's a cool thing about audiobooks is a lot of times you do end up with more, like, because it's usually recorded well after the book came out, like, they'll sometimes throw in some extra stuff like that, or or at the very least, you might like depending on the type of book it is, you might like you might get more out of it because it's read by somebody like a professional narrator or something like that. Like I talked about the Harry Potter books, and it's read by Jim Dale, and he does all the voices and stuff like that.
Yeah,
It's like it's a fun experience. So audiobooks can be like, plus, who wants to read?
Right. Well, I mean, hopefully a lot of people want to read, but it's a matter of wanting to read but not having the time.
Sure. Yeah.
So so what was the book you mentioned? The Neil deGrasse Tyson. What was it called?
Astrophysics for People in a Hurry.
And then If Chins Could Kill: Confessions of a B-Movie Actor. I recommend both of those. They're pretty good. Then all right. Now we're going to go ahead and get into this interview that I did with Tim Kleinert. Mm-hmm. So I hope you guys enjoy it. I've hoped, I tried to have some good questions with him. And I'm going to be having another interview with another game designer in just a few weeks. So if you like this one, stay tuned for that.
Nice.
So check it out. I hope you enjoy this interview, and we'll catch up with you right after. Okay, so I'm here today with Tim Kleinert. Yes, that Tim Kleinert.
That Tim Kleinert.
That Tim Kleinert. How are you doing today, Tim?
Oh, I'm tired.
Yeah.
It's I'm visiting from Chicago over to old school Michigan. And you know how you always think you're going to have tons of time when you do these weekend trips, and then it's like you have no time at all, and you're running around, and this is the end of the weekend, so I'm undertired, and I've been driving for days, it seems.
Gotcha. Yeah, I normally would have the day off today, but I had to work an extra day, and I'm tired as well. So, So, tell us a little bit about yourself, Tim.
About myself?
Sure.
Well, I'm Gabe's older brother.
Yes.
Well, my gaming, how about, since this is a gaming podcast?
Well, yeah, I guess let me actually get into my questions. What was your first tabletop gaming experience? How did you get into tabletop gaming? How much experience do you have with D&D? Was that the first thing you ever played, or was it something else?
No, it was D&D.
Okay.
Me and Gabe, we have this Aunt Donna.
Yes, we do.
Yes. And back in the 80s, she was this hardcore D&D fanatic. One of the things that I remember is that her and her friends had made this town, and they drew up a map of the town. It was all like sectioned off into different areas, and they all had their houses that that their characters owned, and they all had businesses, and I guess they had a whole thing going on with this town. But she, Aunt Donna, I'm trying to think. I was probably 7 or 8. I don't exactly remember how old I was. But me and our older sister Tabitha and our cousin Alan, Aunt Donna would run this some sort of simplified D&D for us.
I didn't realize Tabitha played.
Yeah, back then she did. I don't think after that. I don't think she's done much or any at all. But I don't really remember the rules. I don't really remember what happened. My character was named Lion-O because you can tell that was when Thundercats were big.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure that it was just we played one adventure and then we went up a level. And I think we played like maybe 6 or 7. I think my character got up to level 6 or 7. He was a warrior, fighter, whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. My whole childhood, I thought so. You said our aunt, her name was Donna.
Yeah.
My whole childhood, I thought her name was Dama, because that's what she told me her name was.
Yeah.
But no, that was the name of her D&D character, apparently. I was maybe 13 or 14 when I found that out.
This is the family drama or whatever. She went for a number of years telling everyone that she had legally changed her name to Dama.
Yeah,
with an M.
That's what I thought. But
no,
nope.
she just told people that.
Yeah, I remember when I was a very, very small child, I remember because we shared a room together, I remember once you had like a notebook or something where you had drawn out your character, you had like written out your character sheet, and I want to say you even had like all of your items drawn out on the page, and I remember thinking that was really cool. I don't know if that was like a formative experience for me as far as being a nerd goes, but I always thought that was really cool.
That I don't necessarily remember that, but it sounds like something I would have done.
Maybe I dreamt it up. I don't know.
After the D&D thing, like when I was in junior high, in high school, I bought a lot of books, particularly Palladium books. I had the Ninja Turtles
Yes,
RPG.
I have a copy of that.
That's I
Yes.
keep wanting to go back and play that sometime.
Yeah.
And then I think I probably had a Rift book, not the main book.
Mm-hmm.
I had a Ninjas and Super Spies book. Did I have something else? I remember I was always envious of the Robotech RPG.
Okay.
But I don't think I never played that. But I made a lot of I just made a lot of characters. I think I played those games like 2 or 3 times during that period. I could never really find anyone who wanted to play with me.
To be fair, I'm sure that's what a lot of people's experience is. So after those kinds of games, like what got you more into like the indie game market as well?
Well, after high school, I had moved to Chicago, and I found some friends who, in their group, they had a tradition, I guess you'd say, of making their own sort of house brewed games. They were a Christian group, and at the time, they kind of thought that it was wrong to play D&D.
Okay.
They don't really care anymore.
Yeah.
But at the time, they didn't want to sort of be associated with D&D, so they got into this habit of constantly, every couple months, they would make a new game. It was basically all the same game.
Sure.
It was a different setting. Sometimes they used D6s, sometimes they used a D20, but it was all basically the same. But anyway, so they had one game it was a fantasy game that had about, like 3 or 4 pages of stuff. Mm-hmm. But as we played, we wanted to make more. So I started typing the rules out and developing the rules as we played, and basically transformed this, 3 or 4 page game to I think I had 90 pages of lots of spell lists.
Yeah.
Basically, we had, it's totally what's sometimes called was a fantasy heartbreaker.
Okay.
Is what in the biz, that's what it's called.
I think you've told me about this term before.
But it was basically D&D, but with more classes and more spells and more items. We had probably 20 classes, and every class had its own level progression.
Yeah.
But anyway, we had fun. That was the thing.
Yeah.
Really, the fun part of it was that we made that game up as we played, constantly adding rules, and that was fun. So anyway, I did that. We always talked about publishing it. And so after a couple of years, I actually decided to start looking into it. Mm-hmm. And eventually trying to find out about that led me to a website called The Forge, which is indierpg.com's.
Yeah, I'll include that in the show notes whenever this goes up.
Yeah, well, that particular website, there's still an archive there, but the forums that are there are shut down at this point.
Okay, good to know.
But anyways, around in the early 2000s, that really was sort of the hub for indie RPG creation.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's how I got into indie RPG design and eventually publication.
Okay. So now there's a game that I've mentioned on the podcast before that you created that is The Mountain Witch. So was that, you mentioned that you had kind of worked on this other game that you had made with these other people. Was there any other really big project before The Mountain Witch that was going to be this is the game that I'm creating and was The Mountain Witch, I guess what I'm trying to ask is was The Mountain Witch your first real attempt to make a product?
Well, in retrospect, I would say yes. The other game, we called it Eclectic. It already sounds like a homebrew, I mean, that was a substantial effort. Like I said, I had 90 or 100 pages or whatever it was. But in retrospect, that was a very amateurish project design. Sure. So I had made that with my old group. I feel like when I first got to the Forge, I think I had made an attempt to try to turn Eclectic into a, quote, more of a real game or more of an original game.
Okay.
But the Mountain Witch was originally written for a design contest called Iron Chef. Or at that point, it was the Game Chef. I mean, not Iron Chef, Game Chef. That was actually, the Game Chef still runs. The premise of Game Chef is that you have 1 week to write an entire RPG, usually based around some sort of a theme and using 3 out of 4 keywords.
Okay, interesting.
the year that the Mountain Witch was done was the second year, and that was in 04. So whatever that is, it's been running whatever that is, 14 or 15 years at this point. But that year we had to write a fantasy RPG, and it had to use the 4 keywords were assault, ice, island. I'm trying to remember what the 4th one was. I don't think I used the 4th one.
Okay.
Totally forgetting right now what the 4th one was. That's fine. That was a long time ago.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you.
Yeah, so what I did first off, the another contest entry had made pirate penguins was their idea. was their idea for a game, which that game actually sounded a lot of fun, but I don't think it went anywhere.
Yeah.
So I liked the idea of sort of having integrating the keywords into the characters. So, and making them warriors was the obvious point or obvious sort of choice.
Yeah.
And from there, I came up with the idea for samurai, and then I was like, oh no, Ronin, master of the samurai from the island of the rising sun.
Sure.
Dawn. That was the 4th word.
Okay.
Dawn was the 4th word.
So I guess in a way you
I
used
did
that,
in a way.
that same word.
But from there, I sort of, using the words more figuratively, I wanted the characters to be more isolated from one another. I guess island was what I was thinking, or cold ice I was thinking. So I eventually came up with the idea of using, giving each of the characters a dark fate that they would have to deal with to give them some sort of personal issue that they would have to deal with.
Yeah, I think that's probably my favorite aspect of the Mountain Witch. I think it's really cool. We've briefly touched on it in the past. We don't have to touch on it now, but if you want to, you can, or we can.
Well, I probably should just give the premise for the game.
Sure.
I mean, the premise of the game is you play Ronin in mythical Japan, who have been hired to climb Mount Fuji and kill the mythical mountain witch that lives at the top.
Yeah.
And like I said, each character has a dark fate and a secret past that haunts them. But the interesting thing, part of the game too, though, is that the mechanics of the game revolve around the use of trust.
Yes.
So you periodically throughout the game, you rate how much you trust how much your character trusts the other characters. And then based on that rating, they receive trust points that they can use to either help or betray you.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to give out that trust before you know how they're going to use it.
Yeah.
And as a player, everyone has these ulterior motives for why they're there.
Right.
So you have to trust one another in order to get stuff done, because the resolution system is pretty brutal without trust. But at the same time, sort of dramatically, you can't trust one another.
So yeah, you know that if you're gonna give out this trust, because otherwise you're gonna die. But if you give out the trust, that means that someone can and probably will use it against you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always thought that was really an interesting, really interesting way to play a game, because I generally play games where I'm always not necessarily in character, but I'm out of game. I'm always trying to get everybody to work together. And so when you're playing a game that is inherently meant to sow discord among the players, I think it's interesting. It goes contrary to what I'm used to, but in a good way.
Yeah, I boast that at least half of the characters or half of the party members always die.
Yeah,
somehow.
yeah.
Usually, no, I shouldn't say usually, but very often at the hands of the other characters.
Sure, I know. Because you ran a game for me a bunch of years ago. Also, Jeff, the other host of this podcast, I think he played with us, but he had to leave early. So we played a game of this, I don't know how many years ago, but I remember when we played that, I think one character died, another character sacrificed himself in the big fight with the Mountain Witch, and then that left 2 of us, me and one other person, and then I forgave her, and then she stabbed me in the back. But
that sounds about right.
Sounds about par for the course.
Yeah.
I always thought the Mountain Witch was really cool.
Yeah. Now I typically call the Mountain Witch, I call it a role-playing adventure.
Okay.
It is both a scenario and a rule system.
Yeah.
Wrapped up together. Normally, a game takes between 2 and 4 sessions to play.
Okay.
That's nowadays, at the time that I wrote it, that was considered short form.
Okay.
Nowadays, in the indie scene, they'd probably call that, I guess, medium length. A lot of people in the last whatever decade, there was sort of people kept trying to shorten games.
Yeah.
To try to make it more like a board game.
Okay.
You know, there was sort of this goal that you could pick up a game and play it in about 2 hours.
Sure.
So that was a big thing for a while, is people. And then I think after, and I think there was a few really successful attempts at sort of creating games that worked that way. Mm-hmm. But after that, people, I think, the things swung the other way.
So about how long did it take from when you first started making the Mountain Witch and then to when you felt it was a product you could market?
Well, I think, like I said earlier, the design process for the Mountain Witch was a little bit different because it was for that contest.
Yeah.
So I wrote the core of the game in that 1 week.
Okay.
In that first week, and I came out with a draft. I think it was about 20 pages was my draft for the game. And that was really about 90% of the game, or I should say, of the mechanics and the design. After the contest, let me think. The contest was in April of 2004, and I actually got the book printed and out on the shelves. It was the following summer. It was at Gen Con. I premiered it at Gen Con the next year in 2005.
Okay.
But it was probably close to a year. I spent a couple months, what you might call doing alpha tests, you might call.
Sure.
Play tests. I tweaked a couple rules, and asked for advice from people. There was only really one or two things that I changed. It was mostly, like I said, it was mostly written in that first week. Mm-hmm. And then I spent several months, I created a beta playtest. One of the things you don't really think about when you're first designing a game, but really the hard part of the design, at least for me, is actually the play advice. Sure. Because like I said, the rules themselves were about 20 pages. But the final book that I wrote was, it's 160. It's 35,000 words roughly. Sure. It's like 150. It's a half-size book. But that's actually, you don't think about, when you first make a game, you mostly just think about mechanics and you think about how those pieces are going to fit together. Yeah. But really publishing a book and really getting something you can sell is much more about creating the play advice. And it's the soft advice that really makes a game, really will make a game work or break. Okay. The Mountain Witch, the first edition was decent in that regard. The mechanical sections of the book were very well done. And actually, the game was actually fairly well play tested for the time period. Really, I think RPGs tend not to be play tested very well.
Yeah, I can attest to that. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I think 5th edition actually got way more play testing than almost any game I think in the past has. 5th edition D&D. But anyway, the Mountain Witch was play tested fairly well, but it was all the play testers came from my own play culture. Sure. From that website. So a lot of them were able, they could tell what I meant to say, even though I didn't actually say it in some of the rules. Yeah. So actually, after the book got published, I of course, I did get a lot of questions about certain key things that were left a little bit unclear in the text. And so, I mean, I've recently been working on a revision. Really, I've been working on this revision for like years and years. But
yeah, I know what you mean.
Life just keeps getting in the way, and I haven't been able to get it finished. But it is really I very recently sent it for a peer review, so I've gotten stuff back, and I'm trying to do those last couple pieces now, so that I can get it back in print.
Oh, cool. I've actually I've mentioned the Mountain Witch on Reddit a couple times, saying like, my brother made this game, and I've had people be like, "Well, your brother made the Mountain Witch," and I'm like, "Yeah," and they've been like, "Yeah, find out if he's gonna come out with a new edition or not."
I've been talking about it. I've been talking about a new edition probably for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
But so very soon, Like I said, it's in peer review right now, which means that it's pretty much written.
Sure.
I just have to make the few changes that people have suggested to me.
Okay, well, that's cool. Yeah, I remember because you were saying that the people that you had play tested were all from like your kind of game culture, and I remember after you ran a game for us, I tried running a game of it for my friends, and we've only played D&D, and it didn't go very well. It's nothing against you or the game, but like the outlook that we were used to when playing games was not really what the Mountain Witch is expecting you to have, and so we got maybe halfway through a session, and then I kind of had to cancel. I had to end it because I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't know how to do it because it's just not what I'm used to.
Yeah. So I hope some of my new advice helps with that.
Yeah.
The Mountain Witch it's actually a much more let's say drama-driven game than it may appear at first. Like the setup sounds very much like a D&D adventure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're a party. You know, you're making your way towards the dungeon to kill the big baddie. But the game really is driven by the interpersonal conflict that develops in the game between the characters.
You might even say inter-party conflict. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. So I can understand if your primary experience is with D&D, it probably would take a little getting used to before you could run the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's mainly a matter of like when I'm playing D&D, I'm used to, oh, you want to do something? Okay, roll some dice, and then use the dice as a success or failure. But in a game like that, in which you don't really have to, a lot of it is just kind of narration based. You know, even player narration, and it was something that was at the time was hard for me to keep in mind. And so maybe if I were to go back and play nowadays, maybe I'd do a better job. But at the time, I admit that my own failings kind of didn't go well with the game. Anyway, aside from the Mountain Witch, do you have any other games that you have made that you would like to talk about?
Not really. I mean, I've made tons of half-finished games.
Yeah.
The only other game that I finished or published, well, I had that Heartbreaker. Mm-hmm. I wrote what I called the party game called Mexican Standoff.
Yes, I have a copy of that, but I've never actually played it.
It's fun. Mm-hmm. I'm actually not very good at it. It's kind of funny. I designed it, but I don't think I'm very. But the premise is you and your friends all just you sit in a circle, and you make a gun with your hand. Yeah. And then you point it at the other people, and you're basically playing like Reservoir Dogs. It's like you've all just gotten you all just attempted a heist that went bad. Yeah. And so now you're all trying to blame one another. And the premise is that at any point, so you're pointing your gun at the other players, and at any time anyone can yell bang, and when somebody yells bang, everyone's gun goes off. Okay.
So whoever you're pointing at the time, they die.
They die.
Possibly you too, if somebody's pointing at you.
Exactly. And you basically, it's basically you're just sitting around, just sort of like accusing everyone. It's a pretty lighthearted game. I mean, it's not as serious. You know, you probably played in like 10 or 15 minutes. Sure. And there's a few other rules that go in there too, but that's the basic premise.
Okay. Are there aside from the games that you've made, what would you say are your favorite role-playing games to play? Like, do you have any others that you'd like to mention that you've played in the past and they really left an impression on you, or something that something that you've used as an inspiration for some things that you've made?
That's a good question. I don't think I really have a favorite. Mm-hmm. I had for a long time. I played with a group of other indie players, and we pretty much every 2 or 3 weeks we were just going through and playing a new game. Mm-hmm. The indie scene, like I was saying earlier, the indie scene tends to design shorter games. Sure. They're not all that way. People still make long form games, but a lot of them are short. And a lot of them come out. So the group I was a part of, like I said, we just every couple weeks we were playing a new game. So it's actually been a long time since I've played any game for 6 months to a year. Really, that eclectic, that game that I've written, and that was back in like 2000.
Yeah,
that's probably the last game that I played for longer than probably I think 4 weeks in a row.
Sorry to interrupt, but my very first time ever actually playing a role-playing game, I was visiting you in Chicago, and I sat in on one of your sessions. I want to figure out, was it eclectic or was it something else? You were playing like you're like a geomancer or something, like rode around on a dog.
Yeah, I think that was eclectic. I was a gnome.
Okay.
I was like an elemental wizard, I think.
Sure.
I think
sure.
I was a stone elemental, so I think I could control stone.
Okay.
And yeah, I think I had a dog that I rode around on.
That's especially cool then, because I think I mentioned this on like our very first episode, I think, and I didn't know what game we were playing. I thought maybe it was GURPS or something like that, but that's cool to see that it was a game that you actually had a big hand in creating.
Yeah, and I mean that's even funny. I mean, talking about inspiration. Well, both inspiration for the Mountain Witch, but also when you just talk about the diversity of people's play experience.
Yeah.
Like that game, it was a D&D clone, basically. But we were just, the group that I played with was very competitive.
Yeah.
And we were just always trying to stab each other in the back and steal from each other.
Sure.
And if someone gets killed in the process, oh well. For the most part, people's characters didn't live very long.
Yeah, I remember. I don't know. I thought that was a lot of fun. What is your opinion on Dungeons and Dragons, especially 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons? Like, do you have a like for it, a dislike for it, or are you just kind of neutral?
5th edition actually. Well, I played 3rd edition some, not a ton, but I played that some. I never played 4th edition.
Okay.
And 5th edition, I played it during the playtest.
Okay.
So I haven't seen the final version. I really liked the playtest version, but I know that at that point it was a lot different from what it is now.
Yeah, I'm sure
it was. The version I played, it was very stripped down. I want to say there was only 3 or 4 classes you can play. I don't think they had feats at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But they had the backgrounds.
Okay.
That's really all that's in my memory. Like I said, it was a very stripped down playing experience. I actually really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I really liked it when all you really had was the background in class. It was very interesting to see how characters developed out of that.
Sure.
And I really liked that play experience, but I know that that's very different from the way the game is now.
Yeah. I'll be honest. I think that the background is actually probably my favorite aspect of 5th edition altogether, which I think says a lot. Can you think of what in your entire gaming career, what is your favorite gaming moment? Just like, is there a moment that stuck out in a game, something that happened that was really fun, something that happened that you were like, that was a great adjudication by the DM or GM or just any kind of gaming experience that really sticks out in your mind positively?
Yeah, I know the moment. It's a little hard to explain, but I'm trying to think, what was that game called? Now I'm totally forgetting the name of the game, but it was this game where you play these quasi-government agents who it takes place in the near future, and this government agency has this technology where you could enter the dream world.
Okay.
And the idea is that there is this other dimension or realm or something, like everyone's dreams are connected.
Okay.
And they all take place in this city. So these government agents, they can use this technology to consciously enter into this dream world. And then in doing that, they can sort of access other people's minds, sort of within this in this city. It's all like drab, and the game has all of these sort of communist sort of symbols and whatever in it. But it's fun because the GM is advised to constantly give. First off, the GM gives players all of this private information, but
Okay.
the GM also is constantly lying to the players.
Interesting.
So you never know if you can trust the information you've been given, and you never know like what the other players have been given. either. Anyway, and so that's sort of the premise of the game. And at that time, I think that first edition that we played, the characters are almost entirely randomly generated. So you don't really make your character; you get a character.
Okay.
But anyway, I got this character that had like all of his physical stats were maxed out. So he was just this total combat badass, right? Really, he was way tougher than anyone else that we were playing with, and I was having fun with that. But we were trying to chase someone down, and we got into this fight in some sort of a building or a house, and there was this like homeless woman there, and I'm trying to think, did I have to save her? I think I had to save her, or I had to move her, or something to get her away from the combat. And when I grabbed her, the GM said, "Oh, she kisses you."
Okay.
And suddenly, and it's hard to describe. Something was like sparked in me. I was like, "Oh, I kiss her back," and it created this it was like my character found this love. But the thing of it was, but she was a dream character. She wasn't a real person. He had like fallen in love with this entity that only existed in this dream world. And it became this thing where, this character was this total combat badass, but he was utterly unequipped to deal with love. He had never experienced it, and he was utterly powerless to sort of bring her into the real world. So it created this real. It's hard to describe it. It created this dramatic conflict for my character that he was unable to do. Like, he was so capable in almost every in so many aspects of the game, but he was totally incapable of doing the thing, like accomplishing the thing that he really wanted.
Interesting. Yeah, that's actually a really cool gaming moment.
Yeah. Eventually I think he. Because it's all very dreamy or whatever, he gave into the dream world, and I'm trying to remember what they call it. Some personalities, I think they just call them hostile personalities. They kind of become monsters within the dream world. Mm-hmm. But eventually he chose to become one of these sort of monster hostile personalities in order to stay in the dream world with his love.
Interesting.
Was the ultimate the end of that story.
Interesting.
It was the only way that he could stay with her.
I'll try to see if I can find out what game that was. If I can.
Oh, Lacuna.
Lacuna.
That's the name. It's a very good game if you want to look it up.
Okay. Sorry, there's a small tangent. I just watched an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation where that word was used. Lacuna means like emptiness or something, or I don't know. Anyway, sorry. But, okay, yeah, I think that was really cool. Would you similarly have a memory that is your worst gaming experience that you can recall? If not,
a moment that sticks out to me. I don't know if it's not really the worst moment. Mm-hmm. But it has to do when I finally figured out my preferred play style.
Okay.
The Forge, because it was a site about game design and game publishing, they did a lot of discussions about theory. So there was lots of discussions about different play styles.
Sure.
And I never quite understood some of the distinctions that people were making, particularly when they would talk about dramatic playing versus, they called it narrativism at the time, but dramatic playing versus competitive gaming, or what they called gamism at the time. But actually, I had designed the Mountain Witch. I think it was after I had designed the Mountain Witch. But anyway, so I had gone to this local con, like it's just a real small one. People were just getting together to play. And what was the game? It was some White Wolf knockoff. There was like angels and demons, and only, the player characters who had some sort of special ability to see them.
Yeah.
And, but the moment, so I was playing that, and I was playing a priest who had sort of kind of lost his faith. And that's when he started to see these angels and demons.
Interesting.
And there was some girl that like there had been some sort of massacre of people, but somehow this girl was left alive, but now she wasn't talking or didn't want to talk to people, and so she was in some hospital at the time. And I just got this really strong urge. I wanted to talk to her. I wanted to have my character who had sort of he had lost his faith because his family had died or something.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like he had also suffered this similar pain as this young girl. And I don't know, I just had this really intuitive, like I just really wanted my character to talk to her and to have some sort of like connection. You know, even though she might have been evil, but like, I don't know. And anyway, I kept trying. I kept trying to move my character to talk to her, but it was so obvious that like wasn't in the GM's plan.
Yeah.
You know, like that, you know, me going to the hospital was not what he had prepped for. So he just constantly was like turning me away. And then I did think I eventually did get to talk to her, or I got to see her and I tried to talk to her, but then she wouldn't respond. But it was just so, like, I just was getting so frustrated because I just so wanted to have that moment, that dramatic moment. And it was so obvious that the GM just did not want me to do that. He kept wanting me to do all this other, like, mystery solving sort of thing.
Yeah.
So in one sense, it really sticks out in my mind as this really frustrating moment. But at the same time, it was afterwards that I suddenly got what all of this talk about play styles and what it meant to want dramatic play versus competitive play. It suddenly made sense to me afterwards.
Oh, cool. Okay, then I guess we'll start winding down, but 2 more questions before we go. What advice would you give for somebody else who's interested in getting into game design?
Well, you can find lots of good advice if you look around. There's, trying to think what it's called. I know several people have compiled different lists of questions.
Okay.
I mean, there's always like the fundamental question of what is your game actually about?
Yeah.
And well, that could be a whole topic. What is your game actually about? Meaning, what is, in not just fictionally, what is your game about, but as a game, as a thing that real people do around the table. What are the decisions that your players make? You know, that is the game, as opposed to just the narrative or the fiction.
Sure.
But anyway, but there are lots of lists. I feel like there's sometimes you see 3 or 4 questions posted. I know someone compiled a list of like 15 or 17 questions. But anyway, probably this is the same advice you'll hear a lot. But really, you need to make a game for yourself.
Okay.
You need to make a game that sounds fun to you. That's probably the most important sort of advice, and I think most people who've published games probably will tell you the same thing. Okay. Anyway, yeah.
Okay, and then the last one is just how can people find you on the internet if they want to see what you're about, if they want to see the Mountain Witch, for example? How would somebody go about learning more about that or purchasing that possibly?
Well, at the moment, that's probably difficult. I don't have a website at the moment. I'm on G+. I'm just Tim K at jpusa.org. You can probably find me on G+ that way.
Okay.
I probably hopefully in the next month or 2, I'll have my website up.
Okay.
Which you can link it in the future.
Sure.
But at the moment, I don't have a website, and the Mountain Witch, you can find a PDF of the Mountain Witch if you want. But like I said, the revision is close at hand.
Cool. The Mountain Witch has a Wikipedia page.
Yeah, I know.
It's crazy. So many things, you know, I've tried to give myself a Wikipedia page and it doesn't work that way.
Well, I didn't make it. I know it's funny when you start looking online and you find stuff written by other people.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that'll just about do it. Is there anything else you wanna talk about? Anything else you want to say?
No, it's been nice to visit and talk.
Cool. All right. Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on, and thank you for letting me interview you, and I guess we'll go from here.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed that interview. But to finish out the episode, we are going to take a brief moment, Jeff and myself. Mm-hmm. We're going to sit back and we're going to remember the adventurers that have come before us, who have laid down their lives to make the world a better place for all of us gamers as we toss another log onto the funeral pyre. All right. So this item was submitted on Reddit by user Erilyn Cormalin. I apologize if I butchered that, but I think it's Erilyn Cormalin, I think. Anyway.
Looks about right.
Looks about right. Okay, so this user actually said the death in question was not theirs. It was actually one of their players. And this has some spoilers for the Ravenloft adventure Bleak House.
Yep.
Not sure if I'm not sure how current that is, but if you are maybe playing through Bleak House currently, then just skip ahead or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the party was escaping from an island mental asylum. During their stay, they had been subjected to numerous psionic experiments, one of which temporarily caused two characters to swap bodies.
Freaky Friday.
Exactly. They kept their mental stats, but swapped their physical ones. This effect tended to wear off after a couple hours, but was in full effect during the escape. The two characters were a highly dexterous, swashbuckler-style elven fighter and a big, tough, slow Earth Genasi fighter. The group had fled the asylum and arrived at a cliff overlooking the docks, with a pulley-controlled lift. Being in the Genasi's high-strength body, the elf volunteered to stay at the top and operate the pulley while the rest got on the lift, which they could send back for him once they reached the bottom. However, as the lift was nearing the bottom, the Genasi and a wizard who stayed with him were attacked by the prison wardens.
Oh.
Forgetting the plan to hold off until the lift got back up, he said something like, "No problem, the wizard can feather fall. I take a running jump off the cliff, catch the rope holding the lift, and shimmy down to you." Completely forgetting that he was in the exceedingly low dexterity Genasi body instead of his own high dexterity elven one. Oh. To a chorus of "No, wait!" and face palms, he leapt out into space, missed the rope entirely, and splattered upon the rocks barely a couple meters from the stunned quote-unquote elf, who is now trapped eternally in the body of the idiot who just killed his own natural body.
Oh my goodness.
I think he took what happened worse than the guy who fell to his death did.
Oh no.
So yeah, don't be careful if you ever find yourself in somebody else's body.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. That's
Yes.
a terrible Freaky Friday situation.
Yeah, I thought that's, again, we had a few serious ones of these, and then a goofy one last week, but
that makes me think, because if you're swapping bodies, so if you have one person who has like really high mental abilities and really low physical abilities, and then the other person has the opposite.
Yeah.
One person is making out way better than the other one, isn't that?
That's a very good point.
Because when you swap bodies, somebody is going to have high mental and high physical, and the other person is going to have low mental and low physical.
Yeah.
So you end and then they just kill they kill the weaker person, and then so now they're like super strong and smart.
Yeah, that's one way to do it.
Wait, they have the class of the person they swap to? Do they keep their class?
That's a good question.
I don't know.
I don't know. And it doesn't really say it. So it is psionics. Who knows how psionics work?
Psionics is great. There's psionic powers that like you can fuse several people together or something like that.
Crazy.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So let's raise a glass and remember this. Do we say the Genasi or the elf? Because so we raise our glass in memory of this body swapped individual who forgot at a crucial time what body they were in. That was a good one. All right. Well, I think that'll just about do it for today. To submit questions for us to discuss, or items for the Dragon's Hoard, or stories for the funeral pyre, please email us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com. For show notes, a running list of questions asked, and important links, go to interpartyconflict.com. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/interpartyconflict, or our subreddit at reddit.com/r/interpartyconflict, where I post weekly discussion questions for you. We're also on Twitter at InPartyConflict. We're also on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, and YouTube. Anywhere you download podcasts, you can find us. Please rate, review, and subscribe, or just tell a friend. If you feel like donating, we have a PayPal donate button on our blog. Anything you can give us would go towards making the show better, and we appreciate it. Jeff, you want to tell us about FriendQuest?
FriendQuest is our YouTube channel. If you just search FriendQuest and then Tower of Doom, which is one of the games we played.
Yeah.
It's a D&D arcade game. You'll find us on there. We did a couple playthroughs, and we expect to have some more up pretty soon.
Cool. Also, head over to audibletrial.com/conflict and get yourself a free audiobook. There's over 180,000 titles to choose from. I guarantee you'll find something you like 100% for free. Our music is made by Boxcat Games from Nameless the Hackers RPG. So, Jeff, till next time.
Wait, you're Jeff.
I'm Jeff.
Wait. Oh, God. We switched bodies.
Okay, Gabe will handle this one. Oh!
No, my body.